Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he wants to meet with his Korean and Chinese counterparts to improve ties with neighbouring countries. This follows Seoul's lukewarm response to an earlier offer for talks at next month's G20 Summit. With the two Koreas back on a path of dialogue and cooperation, Beijing's top nuclear envoy arrives in Pyongyang, where he will likely urge North Korea to recommit to the six-party talks aimed at denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. Plus, with reports that Washington and its allies are seriously considering a military action on Syria, US Secretary of State John Kerry calls the recent video footage of the Assad regime's alleged chemical attack on civilians undeniable, saying President Obama will soon decide on a response. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Tuesday, August 27th, and I'm Choi Yoo-sun here in Seoul. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's pledge to reform the nation's spy agency amid claims from the opposition party that the National Intelligence Service was involved in a smear campaign against the opposition party candidate Moon Jae-in during last year's presidential election. During a meeting with her senior secretaries on Monday, President Park said she was determined to reform the NIS so it can properly fulfill its role of taking charge of national security. She also made it clear that she did not use or receive any help from the spy agency during last year's presidential election. Instead, the president said she feels grief from the corruptive practices that have carried over from past administrations. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is being vocal about his intent to improve ties with Japan's neighbors and key regional partners, Korea and China. Speaking to reporters during a trip to Kuwait Monday, the Prime Minister said he wanted summit talks with Korean President Park Geun-hye as well as with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The latest proposal comes a week after reports emerged the Japanese foreign minister suggested to the Korean ambassador in Tokyo that President Park and Prime Minister Abe meet next month on the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Russia. Citing a lack of time for preparation and current strained relations, officials in Seoul said talks, at best, would be informal and brief. Relations among the three Northeast Asian countries have been strained amid the Abe cabinet and Japanese lawmakers' denials of Japan's wartime atrocities. China's top nuclear envoy Wu Dawei reportedly arrived in North Korea on Monday. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency reports that Wu and his delegation arrived in Pyongyang, but it did not specify a reason for the visit. Experts say the top priority on Wu's agenda will be convincing the North to return to the stalled six-party denuclearization talks. This as the two Koreas have been showing signs of thawing relations. They also point out that his trip coincides with the 10-year anniversary since Beijing chaired the multilateral talks. The six-party talks involving the two Koreas, the United States, China, Japan, and Russia have been at a standstill since 2008. Visiting UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has heaped praise on President Park Geun-hye's so-called trust-building process with North Korea. He also urged Japan to recognize its historical wrongdoings, resolve them, and then move forward. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says he is very pleased with the recent progress made in inter-Korean relations. Speaking to reporters in Seoul on Monday, the UN chief said the agreement by the Koreas to reopen the Kaesong Industrial Complex, as well as the ongoing talks on the resumption of family reunions, were the outcome of President Park Geun-hye's new North Korea policy.
As the UN Secretary General, I fully support President Park's vision for a fundamental solution to inter-Korean relations through her trust-building process with the North, which includes easing tensions on the Korean peninsula and building trust.
The visiting UN chief said the United Nations has already begun reviewing President Park's proposal for creating a peace park within the demilitarized zone, and added that the UN will fully support the plan once the two Koreas reach an agreement on the issue. When asked whether he would pay a visit to the north, Pan said he was leaving all possibilities open as long as he can contribute to the improvement of inter-Korean ties.
I think it's the role of the UN Secretary General to first allow the concerned parties to resolve issues through dialogue and provide political support on the sidelines. But I will discuss the issue of visiting the North and more with both Koreas at an appropriate time.
Pan also touched upon the looming conflict in Northeast Asia, largely arising from Japan's denial of its historical wrongdoings. The UN chief stressed that the neighboring countries will be able to maintain future-oriented relations only when Japan establishes a correct sense of history, and urged Japanese politicians to act accordingly. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
A new report here in Korea shows 7 out of the top 10 conglomerates in the country cut back on their investments by about 8% in the first half of the year. That's according to CEO Score, which said the top 10's total investment amounted to $32 billion in the first half of the year, 8% lower than the same period last year. The 3 that increased their investments were Hyundai Motor, POSCO, and Hyundai Heavy Industries. The cutbacks come as the Korean economy shows few signs of exiting its prolonged period of low growth. The recent power crisis has underlined the growing need for Korea to diversify its energy sources. Experts say reducing the country's reliance on fossil fuels and nuclear power is just the first step towards a truly stable and independent energy economy. Our Paul Lee shows us the alternative energy options for Korea.
Korea's rapidly developing infrastructure has led to a heavy reliance on nuclear power and more than 35% of the nation's total energy production. For more than 30 years, nuclear power has provided commercially cost-effective electricity in Korea without the production of harmful greenhouse gases. However, a series of forced shutdowns this past year has emphasized the importance of pursuing alternative energy sources. Of the latest energy technologies being researched, nuclear fusion power has attracted attention for its major advantages over traditional nuclear reactors. Nuclear fusion reactors are safer, more energy efficient, and use abundant sources of fuel. Harnessing the same process that powers the sun, a single gram of fuel can produce energy equal to 8 tons of oil. But the technology is still experimental. Scientists predict the first working fusion reactor will be available by 2040.
Practical advancements must be developed to address the limitations of renewable energy, which include finding ways to increase efficiency and reach feasible mass production methods.
Research in hydrogen technology continues to push ahead as a potential energy source for future homes and vehicles. Hydrogen fuel cells typically only form heat and water as waste byproducts, making it one of the most environmentally friendly energy fields. Solar power has also enjoyed some breakthroughs recently. Unfortunately, both promising technologies continue to suffer from low efficiency and high costs.
Above all else, developing energy technologies that do not rely on non-renewable sources is important for Korea and other similar resource-limited regions.
The Korean government plans to build an additional 16 nuclear reactors by 2030, which will make up more than half of the nation's energy capacity. Merely increasing production is a stopgap solution. Diversifying energy sources and raising awareness of power conservation will be needed in order to reach a sustainable balance between supply and demand. Paul Lee, Arirang News. If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world,
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances,
on your way to work or at home,
Defense Ministry, the legislature will convene a
tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. A team of UN experts has begun its investigation into allegations the Syrian government carried out a chemical weapons attack on civilians last week. With reports that Washington and its allies are considering a military intervention in Syria, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called the video footage of the alleged attacks undeniable. Our Oh Jin-ju has this story.
Western powers, including the U.S., Britain, and France, are reportedly mulling over a military strike against Syria amid its alleged use of chemical weapons in an attack that killed more than 350 people. They are known to have agreed to cooperate in a military action, even without the backing of the UN, and attack major Syrian facilities using cruise missiles fired from Navy warships. The London-based Financial Times quoted an unnamed senior Western official as saying the three countries are eyeing a series of on-off strikes on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's military assets to send a clear message that the international community would not tolerate the use of chemical weapons in modern warfare. However, the official made it clear that these nations are not planning to intervene in the Syrian civil war. The German government also, for the first time, suggested that it would support an international military response against Syria if it is confirmed that the Assad regime did use chemical weapons.
If the attack is confirmed, the international community should take action. Germany would be among those who consider the consequences to be appropriate.
However, countries like Iran and Russia, allies of the Syrian government, warned that a military attack would be a terrible mistake.
If anybody thinks that bombing and destroying the Syrian military infrastructure and leaving the battlefield for the opponents of the regime to win would end everything, that is an illusion.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has strongly condemned a sniper attack on a vehicle carrying a team of UN experts who are in Syria for the chemical weapons investigation. In a statement, Pan said the UN will file a strong complaint to the Syrian government and opposition forces about the shooting. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
The future of Israeli-Palestinian peace talks has been left in question after 3 Palestinians were killed on Monday by Israeli security forces in the West Bank. Following the deadly incident at the Kalandia refugee camp, the Palestinian side reportedly called off a scheduled session of peace negotiations with the Israelis. Palestinian sources say the 3 victims died from a gunshot wound in the chest and of brain damage, and that 19 others were wounded in the live gunfire. The Israelis claims they were responding to a violent attack on security forces where stones and patrol bombs were used. Washington, which brokered the recent resumption of Mideast peace talks, has denied any cancellation of talks, adding the involved parties are continuously and seriously participating. The dramatic 5-day trial of disgraced Chinese politician Bo Xilai came to a close on Monday, with Bo denying most of the charges against him. Bo acknowledged he had made mistakes in the handling of the incidents that triggered the scandal, but denied criminal misconduct, calling his former top aide a liar and his wife insane for testifying against him. The former Communist Party leader of Chongqing is accused of embezzling $800,000 in government funds and of covering up for his wife, who was convicted last year of murdering a British businessman. Prosecutors believe their case was strong enough to convict Bo on charges of bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power. A verdict will be announced at a later, unspecified date. August isn't quite over yet, but Korean movies have already attracted a record number of viewers to the theaters on the heels of several big domestic hits. The Korean Film Council says that Korean films drew a combined audience of 20.4 million viewers in the period spanning from August 1st to the 25th. Total ticket sales added up to $131 million, another record high for the month. The council attributed the record numbers to the commercial successes of homegrown films like The Snowpiercer, The Terror Live, Hide and Seek, and The Flu. And more on cultural news. If you've ever wanted to turn back the hands of time and enjoy a traditional Korean court music performance inside a real royal palace, Here's your chance. Our Park Ji-won reports on how you can enjoy this traditional music and other performing arts events.
The National Kugak Center is presenting a traditional Korean music concert at one of the nation's royal palaces in central Seoul. Changgyeong Palace, one of the 5 grand palaces during the Joseon Dynasty, will be the center stage for the traditional music concert that also features traditional royal dance. The weekly concert begins at 7:30 a.m. and continues for about an hour every Saturday morning until mid-September. The Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra and Maestro Jung Myung-hoon will present Mahler Symphony No. 9 later this week. The orchestra has been playing various Mahler symphonies in a series of concerts, and this performance will be recorded as the orchestra's 7th album through the representative classical music label Deutsche Grammophon. The Seoul Ballet Theatre presents 5 contemporary ballet pieces for 2 days at the end of August at Sejong Center for the Performing Arts. This performance costs only 1,000 won, or less than $1. This is part of the Arts Center's special program to widen the audiences for the performing arts among the public. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the world of figure skating. Now, of course, KiMoon has been wowing her fans with their amazing performances, whether it be the Les Miserables performance or the Imagine performance. But now she has her new performances to showcase. Of course, with their new show program, she decided to choose a musical piece from A Little Night Music titled Send in the Clowns. Now, the piece also received a Grammy back in 1975 for its music, as she decided to go more upbeat with their free program, choosing a tango piece for the first time since 2006. The song is titled Adios No Niño. Now, she has completed both her programs as she hopes to master it before showcasing it for the first time in October when the second Grand Prix event takes place in Canada. And we go from one star to another as rhythmic gymnast Son Yeon-jae prepares for the World Championships taking place in Kyiv, Ukraine. Despite the number of medals she's actually been able to win during the past 5 World Cup events, the 19-year-old has yet to win a single medal during the World Championships. Of course, coming off of an impressive finish at the last World Cup event of the season in Russia, she hopes to win her first medal at the Worlds. But despite her recent success, it's the 2% she's lacking as she makes the little mistakes in her performances, leading to a drop in the points. If she can fix those mistakes, podium finishes at the World Championships is a possibility. And moving on to the K-League Classic, where one team is in the process of completing their team sale. That's right, Seongnam Irachama has decided to sell their team to a new ownership despite being one of the most decorated domestic teams. Now, according to what the team, one corporation has stepped up, stating their desire to buy the team as the process is still going on. Sources say that there's a good chance that the city of Ansan will be the host city for the team. But this comes to a huge shocker for all the fans in Seongnam as the team boasts 7 K-League championships, including 3 in a row at one point. And despite the high fan base, the sale will happen for sure. And moving on to the KBO, where all 9 teams took a break from the sport last night. So let's take this time to check out the current standings in the league. Of course, taking a look at the chart right now, first off at the top of the league, the Samsung Lions still managed to hold on to their first place spot after losing it for a day this past week. The LG Twins continue to stay close at a half game back, with the Tucson Bears struggling late in the month, dropping 2 games to the NC Dinos and the Hanwha Eagles last week. Meanwhile, Nexon Heroes remain in 4th place at 6.5 games behind the league leaders. And now moving on to the bottom half of the league, no change from last week as the Lotte Giants remain in 5th place, just 2 games behind Nexen. SK Wyverns in 6th place, now 4.5 games out of the playoff spot, with Kia Tigers, NC Dinos, and the Hanwha Eagles at the bottom of the league once again. And finishing things off and staying in the KBO, looks like another Korean pitcher is in the league, might be headed to the majors next year, as one major league team expressed a great deal of interest in Samsung Lions closer Oh Seung-hwan. The 31-year-old, who holds a record of 27 wins, 12 losses, 272 saves, and an ERA of 1.68 in 9 seasons with the Samsung Lions, will be pursued by the Seattle Mariners, according to the team scout. The Asian scout for the team stated that they will visit Korea one last time to finalize their decision to bring the closer to the major leagues after this season. While many expected Oh Seung-hwan to head over to Japan after this season, looks like chances are high that he might become the second KBO player to head to the majors since Lee Hyun-jin. And with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Tuesday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, finally, all the heat wave alerts have been lifted, and today should be slightly cooler than yesterday, as morning lows and daytime highs should be a couple of degrees lower with cool winds blowing through from northwest. But afternoon highs are still expected to hover 30 degrees Celsius across the region. So it will continue to feel quite hot in the afternoon with abundant sunshine. Well, right now we are looking at clear skies across the region, so we are waking up to mostly sunny skies, but central region will see increasing clouds later in the day. And even our UV index shows it's gonna be a sunny day, especially down south, so don't forget to apply a good amount of sunscreen and wear sunglasses to protect your eyes. Now, tomorrow's weather conditions should be similar to today's. Now, difference between high and low temperatures start to become noticeably different, which means it's easier to get sick at this time of the year, so please take a good care of yourself. And nationwide rain is on tap on Thursday to bring down the readings for all regions. With that, let's take a look at today's readings. Now, Seoul will start off at 21, and daytime highs will rise to 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees in Fahrenheit. And it looks like Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan will all hike up to low 30s with lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will climb up to 31 degrees Celsius, and Dokdo and Mount Kumgang will stay in the upper 20s. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all I have for you at this hour. Again, don't forget to pack your sunglasses on the morning commute, and I hope you have a great day.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.